All right, we are live. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. We are live on Women Who Lift Israel with our special guest, Dr. Jaime Seeman.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Seeman. We're really, really excited to have you.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad this can work out. It's so cool to be halfway across the world and chatting. So
awesome. So to intro everyone to our group, my name is Sarah. I am the co-founder of our community. We are a women-only Facebook community focused on empowering women through strength training. And we started these live interviews because we wanted to give all of you plenty of inspiration, motivation, advice, and tips from professionals and athletes in the field. And this is why I'm so honored to have this conversation with Dr. Seeman today. So for those of you who do not know Dr. Seeman is a board certified OBGYN, board certified ketogenic nutrition specialist, and a mom of 3 beautiful girls. She's actually taking a break from a softball game now to have an interview with us. Thank you so much.
absolutely.
Dr. Seeman also won the title of Mrs. Nebraska 2020 and placed in the top 15 at Mrs. America 2021. She also appeared on NBC Titan Games with Dwayne The Rock. And this is why she earns her title of Dr. Fit and Fabulous. Most of all, Dr. Seeman is passionate about helping people be a healthier version of themselves by sharing her knowledge with her followers all around the globe. So again, thank you so much for joining us. It's not every day that we get to speak to a medical professional that shares the same passion as us for having muscle. So thank you and for your time.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so amazing. So let's start. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do, and anything you'd like us to know about you. And what's your mission, your passion? We'd love to know and get to know you.
Yeah, so I live in Omaha, Nebraska. So Nebraska is right in the middle of the United States, and I have been born and raised in this state my entire life. I've never left.
Oh.
And I grew up as a 3-sport athlete. I was really active as a child, and I went to college to play college softball. So I was a college athlete. And while I was there getting my degree in nutrition and exercise science, I met my husband. And I would graduate college, and we moved here to Omaha to start my medical training. And during medical school is when I had my first daughter, my oldest daughter.
Wow.
And then I had my other 2 daughters a few years later. So my daughters are 2 years apart. So I have 3 girls. They're just turning 6, 8, and 10 this summer. And it was kind of that shift in my life where I left being a college athlete and training really hard to going to my medical training, that my health really caught up with me. So here I was going from being super active to being super sedentary, sitting in the classroom for long hours, studying on the weekends in the library. And I was really struggling to maintain my normal weight. And I had always been, I would describe myself as a larger girl, definitely a more muscular build. And that had always kind of made me self-conscious, as a woman, because society, it was like the 90s where you were supposed to be really thin and skinny. And that's what, personified, beauty. And so I just felt, very masculine in this feminine world. And so, but I was struggling to maintain my weight. And I was kind of working out, more cardio than weightlifting at that time. But counting calories, that's all I was doing, was trying to count calories. And in my pregnancies, I ended up failing my glucose testing. I was very insulin resistant. And after my 3rd daughter was born, I was diagnosed with prediabetes and hypothyroidism. And that was in 2015. And that was a huge slap in the face for me. Here I am, a medical professional. I have a degree in nutrition. I'm a former college athlete. And I have these preventable medical conditions. And so it was in 2015 when I really set out kind of on a journey to take back my own identity and to kind of figure out how to do it for myself, because I felt like I can't expect my patients and, other women in the world to do this if I can't show them how to do it. So I really just wanted to walk the walk and talk the talk. And I started eating kind of Whole30 and then paleo. And then I eventually settled on the ketogenic diet. And then in 2018, 2019, transitioned to very much more of a carnivore based low carb diet. And I've never looked back. And it's opened a lot of doors and opportunities, but I was kind of giggling inside when you introduced me, because you said, she did Titan Games and Mrs. America, and that's how she earned this name of Dr. Fit and Fabulous. Well, back in 2016, when I created this brand, essentially, I don't know where the name came from. It was like 8 p.m. on my couch one night, but it was like, it was like I had to put that, and this is probably one of the biggest messages, honestly, for this entire group, is I made up that name before I had done anything.
Wow.
And that's what, honestly, you have to do. You have to say who you are. And truly, honestly, it's who you want to be. You have to say it out loud before you ever get there. And that's scary for a lot of people, because they feel like, well, what if I don't? Right. But our thoughts are so powerful, because thoughts turn into actions. And so you have to be very careful about what thoughts you put inside your head, because they do turn into actions, and you will believe whatever your mind tells you. So, and here we are.
That is so inspiring. So I thought you earned the title after that, but actually you made it happen by thinking like what you want to do next, how you want to be viewed in this world. And this is just amazing. I know that you're just getting started. You are so inspiring, and you have so many followers. Like, I just posting your pictures, introducing you in our group. Everybody was like, wow, because it's not often that we see like a medical professional that like shares our passion for being strong and being a woman, like that is, driven by weightlifting and CrossFit and like you said, like ketogenic diet and so forth. So really, yes, it's so inspiring. So actually, I think we have a unique opportunity to hear from you, a medical professional, about a subject that is so dear to this group. We want to bring awareness to the importance of strength training, specifically for women. And aside from the obvious physical and aesthetical benefits, like looking good in a bikini, can we dig a little bit deeper into the medical benefits of having muscle on a woman's body?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in my past, I was a collegiate athlete and did tons of resistance training, and I was never afraid of the gym. I loved lifting weights, but obviously, I think there is this stigma amongst women in society that large muscles make you masculine. And I think that scares a lot of women away from resistance training, because they think if they lift weights, they're going to get larger. And that's the last thing that women want to do. And the thing that we really need to change about this conversation is that when you talk about resistance training, there's really two goals, right? It's either what we call strength or hypertrophy. So hypertrophy is like your bodybuilder or woman, for that matter, with really large muscles, but a lot of times they're not strong. They've just damaged the muscle, and then it regrows, and then they damage it and it regrows, and they can get these really large biceps and quads and things like that. But a lot of times they're not strong. And then you go to a powerlifting meet and you see some, women and men, and they don't look all that large, and they can lift an incredible, amount of weight compared to what their body weight is. And so, for me as a, upper 30-year-old female, why would I do resistance training? And I think that women, if you only have 20 minutes to spend in the gym, you're going to get more bang for your buck doing resistance training than you will doing cardio. And so many women are addicted to cardio and running and getting on the elliptical and things like that. But when we think about inside of our body, muscle is an organ, and it's an organ that is very helpful in protecting your metabolic health. So as we age, essentially, our body gets less efficient at everything. Our cells age. And having muscle on your body is the one thing you can do to really protect yourself against metabolic diseases. So the diseases that are most likely to make you miserable as you age, and those are heart disease, cancer, osteoporosis, dementia. Having
Wow.
muscle can help prevent that, because when we think about energy, cellular energy, muscle is more metabolically active than fat. It's less inflammatory, and it's a great glucose disposal agent. So for somebody like me who's very insulin resistant, having more muscle on my body would be advantageous. And so we really have to get away from the stigma that, for women, trust me, you're listening right now, you want to have muscle. And it's hard to build muscle, and it's hard to maintain muscle. I always say muscle has to pay an expensive amount of rent inside your body. And so if you don't give it what it needs, you can lose it very easily, and it's hard to build it. And so I think that my medical practice is very much focused on the health of the muscular system, because we are so focused on body fat in the medical world, right? What is your BMI? How much fat do you have? But we never look at a woman and say, you don't have enough muscle. And there are so many women out there who are under muscled, right? They might be skinny or thin or whatever, but they don't have any muscle. And you can still be very metabolically unhealthy, even if you're at a normal weight, if you don't have enough muscle. And for me, the reason that I weight lift, you brought that up, is of course we all want to aesthetically look good in our swimsuit. And as you lose weight, having muscle, having some structure on your body will make you look better. And feel confident. But the reason that I do it is because I want to be able to go up and down a flight of stairs when I'm 80 years old. I want to be able to, at my age now, sprint up a flight of stairs to go save a mom or a baby. Or I want to be able to, play with my kids. My daughter's playing a softball game right now. She's a pitcher. I want to be able to get down and catch and do things that require strength. And it's just the truth, as we age, that if you're not strong, you're more likely to get sick or injured.
For sure. I can see the difference in myself also. Like I started weightlifting about 3 years ago when my son was 4 years old. And it was really hard for me to, pick him up and things like that. But now he's almost 8, and it's really like easy for me to like walk with him in my arms. Once we were in Jerusalem once, and like we had to walk to the car. It was like about 2 kilometers, and he was tired. He didn't want to walk anymore, and I put him on my back, and it felt so like empowering to be able to just walk to the car with my son. And it wasn't even hard, because I'm squatting 80 kilos. I can squat a little kid that's 25 kilos. So it's really, really empowering. It's also changes like your life and your mobility. And also I feel like at a certain age, I just turned 40 last week actually. So I think at a certain age, you need to plan for your future, and like building muscle on your body is really like planning for your longevity, like you said.
Yes, absolutely.
So now that you gave us that the importance of muscle, do you have some basic tips in order to make sure to maintain or grow a healthy muscle mass?
Yeah, so the most simple version is to eat meat and lift weights, because essentially what we need the building blocks, which is nitrogen and amino acids. So we need an adequate amount of protein in the diet. And women in particular sometimes are not good about eating adequate protein, eating adequate amounts, or eating it often enough. And so when you're trying to build muscle, you want to make sure that you're getting probably at least 30 grams of quality protein, at least probably 3 times per day. And then you have to do resistance training. So you actually have to put a stress on the muscle to grow it and to make it stronger. So I always say, like, your brain has to tell your bicep that you still need it. It has to send that neurologic signal. So it's so much more than physical. There is a neurological aspect to growing the muscle. And that's why when you lift, you want to be very intentional about squeezing the muscle and to really engage that mind-body connection. But essentially, all you have to do is eat protein and do resistance training. And that is the best thing you can do to protect and maintain and grow your lean body mass.
So protein is such a huge debate in our group. some people go by the RDA amount. Some people believe that, you know, you should eat a little bit more or way more than the RDA amount. What would you recommend for a woman to eat in terms of protein? I guess it goes by weight, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, so most studies are going to look at the particular intake of protein based on either the lean body mass or the total body weight, and it will, you know, the studies vary. There's a wide range, but in my opinion, the recommended, you know, dietary allowance, especially in the United States, is low. It's too low for women. And particularly because I take care of an age of, you know, population of women who are of childbearing age, who are going to be coming into pregnancies, and these women need more protein. And so my personal recommendation for most women is an upper threshold of 1 gram per pound of body weight. So I weigh 160 pounds, so 160 grams of protein. You could probably go up to 1.2 grams per pound, but I think that likely you're above the threshold of amino acid utilization. I think the upper limit per meal is probably 50 grams. And so if you're not eating more than 3 meals, you know, 160 it would be perfectly adequate. I think a lower threshold, I probably wouldn't go, you know, below 0.8. Now in the low carb world, there's a lot of controversy with protein, because if you eat too much protein, you will not make the same level of ketones as if you keep your protein threshold lower. Now, if you're not somebody that needs therapeutic ketosis, like you're not a child with epilepsy or something like that, then I wouldn't worry so much about that. I would prioritize protein with your meals. And so for most women, I would recommend, you know, at least 4 to 6 ounces. I always want patients to kind of understand, what does it look like to eat? Because I don't think we should have to count and track and weigh our food all the time. I think that's exhausting. So it's like, what does that look like visually, you know? And that's, you know, 4 to 6 ounces of beef, chicken, salmon, some high quality animal protein with each meal. And that should be the foundation of each meal. And then you can add vegetables or grains or fruits based on, you know, your particular diet.
Okay. But what's important, you say, is to at least eat 30 grams of protein per meal.
Yes. 30 grams, 25 to 30 grams is essentially what you need to, if it's a good animal protein, to create that stimulus for muscle protein synthesis. So you don't want to be eating, you know, 5 grams here, 10 grams here. Yes, you could essentially get that over the day if you were eating, you know, small little things, but it's better to eat it all at once in one big, you know, bolus, 25 to 30 grams.
Got it. Okay, so what about supplements like magnesium or omega-3? So they say that in Israel, the water is lacking in magnesium. So a lot of our community members are taking magnesium supplements. Are there any supplements that a woman who lifts must consider taking?
So in general, I'm not a huge fan of supplements. I have seen patients come in with a backpack of supplements. First of all, it's expensive. Second of all, that takes a large amount of dedication to be able to take all of those supplements. But but there are a few supplements that I think a lot of people need, and one of those actually is magnesium. So in the United States, yes, our water supply doesn't have magnesium. Our soils are depleted of magnesium because of the monocropping and the way that we have farmed our land. And so most people are magnesium deficient, and magnesium is needed for hundreds, if not thousands, of different processes inside of our body. And for somebody that works hard in the gym, weightlifting and things like that, you are burning through your magnesium a lot faster. And so magnesium is very important. It helps with a multitude of things, like I said, hundreds of thousands of things inside the body. Now there's different types of magnesium. So that's one question a lot of people will ask. There's, you know, magnesium citrate, glycinate, threonate, taurate, orotate. There's all kinds of different, you know, and it depends sometimes what you're taking it for, if you're taking it for brain benefit or heart benefit or whatever. But and there's side effects of some of them. You know, magnesium citrate can cause loose stools. So for people with constipation, that might be a good magnesium supplement. But yes, I am a fan of magnesium supplementation. They also make transdermal magnesium. So like a lotion or oil that you can put on your skin. Magnesium is absorbed that way very well. You can take magnesium sulfate baths, like Epsom salt baths, which a lot of athletes do. And that's a great way to absorb magnesium as well. You brought up omega-3s. So
before we go to omega-3, I wanted to ask about magnesium. Is there a specific type of magnesium you would recommend for someone who lifts weights, CrossFit athletes, or yeah?
Yeah. No, there's probably a handful of different magnesiums that you could use. Magnesium taurate is really good. That's one that's consumed a lot for muscle and heart health. But like I said, magnesium citrate is good. It's absorbed very well. I like magnesium threonate quite a bit because it's one of the only magnesiums that crosses the blood-brain barrier. So I like it for the neurologic aspect of it. The only one I would probably avoid is magnesium oxide because it's not very well, the absorption is not great, but any of the other magnesiums, or some of them come in complexes where you can get a couple of them in one supplement, and that's totally fine too. It's pretty, you can't really overdose on magnesium. It's almost impossible.
Okay, so you were saying omega-3. Sorry, I caught you off.
Yeah, so many people's diets are deficient in omega-3 fatty acids. So what's important when it comes to omega-3 and omega-6 in the diet is that we are consuming them in a particular ratio, that we're maintaining this ratio within our bodies. And so if you're not eating, salmon and eggs and beef and things like that, you may be deficient in omega-3s in the diet. Omega-3 supplements are garbage. A lot of them are. A lot of them are oxidized. They don't contain the amount of omega-3s they say they contain. And so I'm actually more of a fan of whole food supplementation with omega-3s. So like fish roe, salmon roe, krill oil, these types of omega-3 supplements are going to be far superior to than like your fish oil capsules. But the more you can just prioritize omega-3s in the diet, they're better utilized and safer.
So basically 1 salmon a week at least.
Yes, huge. And if you can find it, wild caught salmon is better than farmed because the farmed actually sometimes will contain a lot of omega-6 because they feed the fish grains and corn and things like that.
Oh, got it. Okay, next question. So do you think that women should lift during pregnancy? What would be some general advice for women that love lifting and get pregnant? How can they continue doing what they love while they're creating a miracle?
Yeah, so exercise and weightlifting can be done in pregnancy. Sometimes it does require some modifications. The biggest issue in pregnancy is that you have some additional hormones, progesterone and one called relaxin. And what they do is they loosen our ligaments and tendons and soft tissue in preparation for being able to push an entire human through your pelvis. It has to be mobile, has to be able to stretch and expand to get the baby through the pelvic floor. And so unfortunately, these increased hormones can make us more prone to injury. So that's one thing we really have to be cautious about. And then as the uterus is getting larger, it changes our center of gravity. And so it's changing the physics and the mechanics that we will typically use, for something like a deadlift. And then obviously your belly is larger. So sometimes it can get in the way of trying to throw around heavy weights. So we don't want to, create any trauma. We don't want women to fall. So, we sometimes have to make modifications. I tell women it's safe to continue your usual activities, possibly with some modifications. I think the one thing that we have to stress, though, is this is not the time in your training that you're going to try to PR. You just want to maintain your physical activity level, but this isn't where we're trying to, set a personal record because we don't want you to get injured. But it is absolutely safe, and it actually helps decrease the amount of maternal weight gain. If you suddenly stop doing the activities you're doing when you get pregnant, you're more likely to gain weight. You're more likely to get gestational diabetes. That increases your risk for preeclampsia. It increases your risk for a lot of things. So, and not only maintain the amount of physical activity, but it's actually safe to start physical activity,
Wow.
even if you weren't exercising prior to becoming pregnant. They've looked at studies where women, and all of a sudden, oh, I got pregnant, I want to be healthy now. They've initiated some sort of exercise program, and it is absolutely safe, and in my opinion, encouraged.
Amazing. We actually have a question from the community that is relevant, so I'm going to ask, do you recommend taking a pause from weightlifting or CrossFit during the first trimester of pregnancy?
Well, the first trimester can be very rough. We're seeing this huge spike of this HCG hormone, and it can cause food aversions, it can cause lack of appetite, it can cause nausea and vomiting. Women feel very fatigued, and it can be a rough time for people to be able to maintain their diet, to maintain their normal exercise routine. The level of exhaustion can really almost be debilitating. And so sometimes you do have to slow down. You want to make sure you're getting adequate nutrition, that you're getting enough sleep. But you don't necessarily have to stop or pause if you don't want to. But first trimester for some women really can be survival. It's very difficult. Now, from a physiologic perspective, you actually are very insulin sensitive in the first trimester. So sometimes women in particular that I take care of that are low carb, a lot of times have to add carbs in the first trimester just to maintain their nutrition, and that is perfectly acceptable. But I don't think you have to stop working out if you feel like you have enough energy to do it.
Yeah. I think also a big question here is that there's a higher risk of miscarriage in the first trimester, if I understand properly. So some women can be scared to, do anything that could cause them to have a miscarriage. And would weightlifting or CrossFit cause a miscarriage, in your opinion?
Yeah, we don't have any evidence to show that that's true. Of course, pregnancy loss is much more common than any woman realizes, because many women will experience pregnancy loss and not really tell anybody about it. There are a variety of reasons why pregnancies will not progress and a woman will lose the pregnancy. But when you think about, weightlifting, what could be the possible mechanism that a woman could lose a pregnancy because she was working out too hard? Well, the uterus gets about 30% of the cardiac output from the heart. And so that's an incredible amount of blood that's going, to the uterus and away from the periphery, right, to our brain and our muscles. And so if you start exercising, you could be shunting some of that blood away from the uterus. I'm not convinced that is true. The pregnancy takes what it needs.
Okay.
You could almost think of it like a parasite. So it will take whatever it needs to grow this human at the loss of the mother. And so there's really no evidence in the studies to suggest that exercise or weightlifting. We tell people to work out at 80% max heart rate. And so, like I said earlier, it's not the time to set personal records. You may have to modify your workout program, but we don't have any evidence to suggest that would increase your risk of miscarriage.
Okay, great. Let's talk about weightlifting and fertility. Can weightlifting affect your fertility in a positive or a negative way?
Well, it kind of depends where you're starting at baseline. So, if you are overweight or insulin resistant, then exercising and lifting weights may help correct that and may increase your chance of ovulation and getting pregnant. But when it comes to I just totally lost my train of thought. Sorry.
So for fertility and weightlifting, can weightlifting affect it positively or negatively?
Now I remember what I was going to say. But the one thing that we have to remember is that exercise is a purposeful stress on the body. And so we don't want to be overtraining. I have had patients that are very high level athletes that sometimes have to dial back on their training, because when you think about something like CrossFit in particular, this is quite an anaerobic and an aerobic stress on the body. And after about 60 minutes of exercise, and I know there's some CrossFit athletes that train multiple times per day. We can see an increase in cortisol production, which is one of our, stress hormones. And some patients are overtraining, and that can impact their fertility. So you want to make sure that you're maintaining a normal body weight, that you're not overstressed, making sure you're getting adequate sleep and proper nutrition. Micronutrients are super important for early pregnancy. So it can go both ways. It can harm, it can help your fertility. It just depends on where you're starting from.
Where you're starting. Okay. We had for example, should a woman going through fertility treatments reduce her intensity in CrossFit classes at any point during the treatment? I think it goes back to what you said about cortisol could increase. Maybe she should relax a little bit her workouts.
Yeah, I would dial back the intensity, but I don't know that I would stop. The hard part about pregnancy loss and infertility is that when a woman goes through this process, she's looking for reasons as to why it would happen. And so a lot of women who will come into my clinic, they've lost a pregnancy. They think, oh, I ate something wrong. I slept the wrong way. I worked out the wrong way. That's the hard part about that grieving process, is we want an answer as to why it happened. And very rarely do we actually get that answer. So, I like women to maintain their normal activity, dial back the intensity, but you don't have to stop.
Okay, got it. So the topic of food is often a sensitive subject in our group because there are so many emotions associated with the subject. I know you're a very big keto advocate. Can you give us the keto basics and why you think, from a medical standpoint, this way of eating could lead to a healthier lifestyle?
Yeah, so when we think about the macronutrients, fat, protein, and carbohydrates, carbs are essentially non-essential for human life. So when we think about how we make cellular energy, our body can actually make all of the glucose that it needs to survive through fat and protein. So that process is called gluconeogenesis. And but does that mean that zero carb is the best way? I don't believe that's the answer either. And so then, the looming question is, how much should you eat of all these different macronutrients? I have very insulin resistant genes. I come from a family who are normal weight, normal BMI diabetics. And so I think it's very individualized because we're all built from different parts and we all have different genes. But I think when you think about these macronutrients, protein, we talked about, I feel is very important. So we don't want to sacrifice the calories from protein. So I like to set my protein at a certain threshold. And then fat and carbs are what I call energy calories. And so then we have to decide how many energy calories we're going to consume and in what percentage. Should they be fat? Should they be carbs? Maybe they should be balanced between fat and carbs. Well, fat's important because literally our cells are made from fat and cholesterol. Our sex hormones like estrogen, testosterone are literally made from cholesterol. And so fat is certainly very important in the diet. There are ramifications of eating a very low fat diet. And so we want to make sure that we're getting some fat. When it comes to carbohydrates should only be consumed. You should basically have to earn your carbohydrates. So if somebody is a CrossFit athlete, it may be advantageous for them to use carbs as a fuel source. When I think about energy sources, fat should be our energy at baseline, and carbs should be used for those short bursts of activity, right? And so if it's a day where you're not training and you're just doing walking and you're sitting in your office, that's probably not a day where you need very many carbs. If it's a day where you have an intense training going on for an hour, or a CrossFit competition or something like that, that would be a day that you could eat more carbs in the diet because you'll be utilizing them. The last thing we want is carbs just hanging around in our system. That's what I did for many years. It didn't turn out very well. And so it's very individualized. Every single woman listening on here, we would all probably fall into different categories. But for me and how I maintain my life is I eat pretty low carb most of the time. And if I'm going to incorporate any carbs, I do them post-workout.
Post-workout. Okay. We have a question that's related. Is keto okay during pregnancy?
Yes, a very controversial topic. So the the Institute of Medicine essentially says that a woman who's pregnant should not eat any less than 175 grams of carbs in pregnancy. But there's not really any scientific evidence as to where they came up with that number. So they basically looked at the essential. So we have a few organs in our body that use glucose only as an energy source. So parts of our brain, our kidneys, our red blood cells. And so they look at how many carbs you would need to feed those organs. And then they look at how many the baby would need. And then they took 2 standard deviations. So anybody that's in statistics, they just basically rounded up, took 2 standard deviations and came up with 175. But in this exact same paper where they say no woman should have less than 175 grams, it says that there is essentially no upper limit of protein or fat, and that carbs are non-essential for human life if a woman is consuming enough protein and fat. So they kind of contradicted themselves because they said physiologically you don't need carbs, but make sure you eat 175.
Okay, that's controversial indeed.
The reason that I'm very passionate about it is because insulin resistance is a big deal. If a pregnant woman, let's say she passes her diabetes test, she could still have a fair amount of insulin resistance. And to keep our blood sugars normal, it may be at the cost of a large amount of insulin. And if you're having to use a ton of insulin in pregnancy, it can make your baby overweight. It can cause electrolyte disturbances. It increases your risk for preeclampsia. So it really can increase your risk in pregnancy. And so a pregnant woman should essentially eat to a level of carbohydrates that keeps her blood sugars normal. Now, not all women are testing their blood sugars in pregnancy. Most aren't. And so this is very individualized. If you are obese and insulin resistant, you might need 50 to 75 carbs during pregnancy. If you are very insulin sensitive, then maybe you can eat up to 175. But most women do not need more than, I would say 10 to 15 carbs per meal, kind of on the low end. I would probably say, 25 on the upper end. So really for most of my patients, they're falling somewhere between 25 and 75, but it's very individualized. And, but it's important because too many carbs is harmful. It can be harmful in the pregnancy.
So at the moment we finished our interview questions, but we have a lot of questions from the community. I know you only have 8 minutes left, so we'll choose some of them. Most of my weightlifting friends have had a C-section. I have heard that this is quite common for women who lift. Is it a myth? If not, is there a way to avoid this?
I don't know that I've seen studies who have, stratified how much the woman can lift and what her risk of C-section is. But, childbirth is a physical feat. And so we want women to be in good physical shape coming into labor and delivery. When you think in particular about somebody who's maybe a power lifter or a CrossFit athlete, and I have taken care of them in my practice, they sometimes have a very, very, very strong core and pelvic floor. And for a lot of these women, you think, oh, they would be able to push out a baby very easily. But I have seen, and this is completely anecdotal, this is not from any study, but I have seen that they are almost so strong, but they don't know how to relax their muscles. And when it comes to childbirth, it's a very interesting, the physics of it, being able to create intra-abdominal pressure, right? Like a Valsalva, if you're going to deadlift, right? You have to fill the lungs and create this pressure. In childbirth, you have to not only do that, but you have to relax your pelvic floor at the same time. And it's very much a mind-body connection, trying to do that. But I have seen some higher level athletes that have a lot of difficulty with that. Now, does that increase the risk of C-section? I don't know that you can necessarily say that, um, for athletes who have had a C-section, the unfortunate part is we put weightlifting restrictions on you for 6 weeks postpartum.
Mm,
And so you do have to take time off after to recover from that. And you want to, because you want
mm,
everything to heal properly. But it doesn't mean that you can't, after you've been cleared by your doctor, get back into your routine and progressively get back to the weights you were doing before. But I don't think we have anything in particular to say that that's a risk for these women.
okay. Mm,
C-sections happen for a variety of reasons. It's either the baby's too big, the pelvis isn't big enough, or the dynamics of labor, like the uterus isn't squeezing properly. So it could be any of those things. We call them the 3 Ps of labor.
okay. How old were your kids when you felt you had the time to start taking care of yourself again?
Oh my gosh, what a great question. So before I had my first daughter, right, you have all this time. Well, I didn't have a lot of time. I was in my medical training, but
Yeah.
and then after I had my first daughter, I don't think I worked out much at all. That was hard. And then when I had my second daughter, the only way I tried to get back into shape, I signed up to run 2 half marathons, but it was grueling having a 2-year-old and a newborn baby. And then it was when I had my third daughter, that was when I had this, pivotal moment in my life where I was diagnosed with diabetes. And I made a decision after my third daughter was born that how can I take care of my children if I can't take care of myself?
Mm,
And it was a real mental shift for me, because I think as a mom, we feel selfish when, if we want to go to the gym for an hour. But I knew that it was going to make me a better mother, mentally, physically, if I took care of my own body and if I ate properly and trained properly and slept properly. And sometimes you have to ask for help. You have to ask for help from your partners. You have to have good communication, your friends and family members. But essentially, it was when my youngest daughter was born that I really started to prioritize my training. And I train every day at 5 a.m. because my children are sleeping. They don't need me at 5 a.m. They're sleeping. And that's the only time of the day that I know that it can happen. It's a protected time of the day. But I think that, even when as long as you have somebody, some gyms, you can take your baby with you. That was the biggest thing for
mhm,
me is my gym didn't. And so I needed my husband to be home. I needed somebody to be at home, with my children so I could train if you can't take them. But um, I think it is important as a mom that we take care of ourselves, that we prioritize our own health so that we can take care of our families. And it's not selfish. I always say, don't try to fill other people's cups if your pitcher is empty.
mhm.
You don't have anything
Totally.
to pour out. So,
Totally.
yeah, so that's where, for those that follow my social media, one of my mottos is pay yourself first. Pay yourself first, take care of yourself so you can take care of others. And as a mom, we need to start doing more of that.
Amazing. So, to end the interview on a positive note, give us a few last words of inspiration from the heart. Maybe what is your motto in life and why?
So in 2015, when I was going through this change, I lost one of my best friends that year as well. And I had this sudden realization that every day I wake up is a great day.
Mm,
The fact that you woke up today makes you luckier than a lot
wow.
of people.
Have
And
shivers.
we don't we don't know how long we're going to be here. We don't. You don't know how much time you're given on earth. It's such a short just blip of time. And so every single day you wake up, you have to be grateful that you're alive, and you don't want to waste that time. And so from March of 2015, I decided to live my life with a different purpose and a different passion. And in this world, um, the currency that we use as humans is energy. And so we need to be very intentional about the energy that we put out into the world. And I want you to set those intentions every day when you wake up. And I'm going to circle back to what I said at the beginning of this interview, is that you have to tell the world who you are before you ever become that. And wake up every single morning and look yourself in the face in the mirror and say who you are, and tell yourself how strong you are and how beautiful you are and how smart you are, because those thoughts will turn into actions and the actions turn into results. And so just be careful about what you think.
Thank you so much, Dr. Seeman. This was amazing. You gave us a wealth of knowledge. I learned so much in the last 45 minutes. I'm so grateful. And before we end the interview, just tell our listeners where we can find you.
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook at Dr. Fit and Fabulous. And I've got a website, drfitandfabulous.com. I love my followers. I love connecting with people. So head on over there. And once again, Sarah, thank you for this opportunity to connect with these amazing, strong women. Yeah. I love I'm in your group now. So I was stalking and looking at people's
amazing
stuff. Yes. And I just think that social media is so powerful. We're like halfway across the world right now and having this conversation. So cool.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Kisses from Israel.
Thinking about you all a lot too, and everything that you're going through. And I know you are strong and resilient women. And so stay in there.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.